Yesterday, just sort of on a whim, I posted on my Facebook, has anybody ever run into a cult before? I got a few responses, which was kind of terrifying, and one of the responses was from my friend Joe, who said that he grew up in a cult, and that he wants to talk to me about it. I'm gonna go talk to him about what it was like to grow up in a cult.
So I'm Joe Powell. I just about 33 years old, and I am currently working as a product manager.
So Joe, tell me a little bit about your father.
My dad's he's troubled. He's there's a history of bipolar in the family. He has it. He was abused. He in turn became abusive. Really manipulative. He got married in high school and they had a kid. And his wife realized who he was and got rid of him while her daughter was still pretty young.
What was the world that you were born into?
He was an alcoholic. If he had a bad day, he would come home and be looking for someone to take it out on, which was usually me. I think he had a really fragile, emotional state at the best of times. So anything that kind of deviated from his normal was unbearable to him. And I think I triggered that in him a lot just by being a human, just by existing, being something that was not controlled by him. He would kind of do this thing where he would have these almost like execution style punishments. He'd pull out the piano bench and he'd assemble the whole family, and whoever it was that was in trouble, which was usually me, he would sort of recite your crimes, and he'd have you lay down on the piano bench, and then he would recite them more, and be like, so do you know why this is happening? You're this, you're that, you're whatever. And then he would punctuate it with hits from the belt. It was theater, at that point. It was spectacle. I find a lot of times people, they just kind of normalize it. You say the insane thing that happened to you, and they're like, that reminds me of this time that I ran out into the street, and so my mom grabbed me and smacked me and was like, don't run into the street, you'll get killed. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, And it's just no, you really don't. This is a very different thing. My little sister, seemed like every third kid dad really didn't like we really drove him nuts. But I have little kids of my own now. I have a daughter who's 3. And my one sister, she was younger. She was 1, 2, and dad just decided he had to break her spirit. So he would just be beating this tiny little girl in the other room for just an hour on end. He was just threatened. He was threatened by this little tiny girl. And I mean that's having the infants, having had kids who go from being infants, toddlers, whatever. You can't control a baby, you can't control a toddler.
Yeah.
They're a force of nature. I think the people who took the time to talk to him thought he was very charming, thought he was very insightful, thought he had good ideas, and he loved that. But few people came so close that they could see what was past that. Before, things kind of changed. I think when I was 9, he went to church one night. I don't know if he's, just there to pray or whatever, and he ran into this teenage girl. And her dad, she had lost her dad when she was 12. He was just the right place at the right time. And she started being this guy's got something, Because again, my dad's really charismatic. So he started seeing this girl while he was married, He had 6 kids with my mom, or the 6th one was on the way. And he started seeing this teenage girl to give her spiritual direction, which whatever it was, doesn't really work with being married. Mom got really stressed out. Mom got really sick. And dad was like, what would help? You need help in this house. I know a lady. So we moved her in. to help out around the house. And sort of at that time he was going through this thing where he was like not approving of how mom was raising us. So he was like, he needed someone who could tell him really what was going on and sort of enforce his will. So, I mean, right then and there setting up like this split power structure in the home. So that was when he was like, whoa, there's this person and I can tell her I have this religious truth and she'll just do whatever I say. Like whatever he says. If he was like, you need to dress this way because God, and it'll be bad for your soul if you don't. She's like, okay, dress that way. He's like, you can't eat today because that will make you holy. And that's that. If it's like, I need you to prostrate yourself on the floor in front of me to work on your obedience, you do it.
She would just do it.
She would do it. People at school would ask. They'd be like, so who's this woman who lives with you guys? And we were like, she helps out around the house. Mom's sick. And people were like, rerouting? Okay, sure. Sure, that's what's happening.
She's a caretaker.
She's a nanny. She's a caretaker. She's a nanny. That kind of censorship, sort of that autocorrect that people have. It's that sort of thing which helps keep people in cults from being helped. Like people, not just cults, but any kind of abusive, like dominating situation, keeps people from helping them. When I got into high school, he found another girl.
Another young teenage girl.
Yeah. In the meantime, he quit his job. He opened a store, which he didn't like to work at, but these women who moved in, they would work it for free. And they just lived in the house with us, I was more fortunate than my younger siblings because at that point in time, he had not appreciated how crucial it was to control the experiences of the people you're trying to dominate. So I went to school, I went to high school where I made friends with people. I had developed friendships with teachers, adults who were not him, who didn't act like him and didn't have the same kind of crazy worldview as him. And so for me, I had sort of a baseline that I could test my own experience against and be like, okay, my dad's crazy. My dad is really destructive and is really terrible. For me, while I was accustomed to it, I didn't think this was normal. This was how it was supposed to be. It was always clear to me that he was like, when he was like, I am God's mouthpiece. It's kind of like, well, nobody else says that. Everyone else disagrees with you about that. So probably you're not. I went to college and that kind of became a turning point. I finished high school when I was 16. So if I was going to get out, it had to be to an approved college. And in those days, it was a very religious, it's a very religious school. So dad was like, okay, you can go. And I was on scholarship, so he didn't have to pay. So that was like another reason why I was able to go. Then suddenly he didn't have any control over me anymore. So he freaked out. He didn't know what to do. So he was like, I'm pulling you out of school. You're going to come home. And I was like, well, no, you're not. If you do, I'll go to court and fight to get legally emancipated from you. Like, I'm in no way dependent on you for this. So you can't actually take it away from me. At that point, he changed tactics. Everyone in his house actively shunned me and my older brothers, who had also moved out. He pulled my younger siblings out of school. My older brother had warned him. He was like, you're mad at us, but don't take it out on the kids or we'll find out, and we'll sick the cops on you. And he was like, well, why would I do that? And we're like, because that's what you always did whenever we were growing up. Whenever there was someone stronger than you that made you mad, you would take it out on, the people you controlled. Like then he really kicked into high gear, the whole controlling the kids' reality. He pulled them out of school. He fed them misinformation about me and my older brothers. My mom got on board with it. She helped him. Like my brothers and my friends, we went down because we found a place where she could live with the kids. It was like a halfway house to get her away from my dad. And we went there and she freaked out. It was bad. And that sort of her decision then made everything a lot worse. Because she's the only one who could do anything about it, you know? Like, the rest of us were just kids. I mean, we're teenagers, like young adults, but like she was the mom. If you go to court and you're like, this is happening, they're like, what's the mom say? Mom says everything's fine.
They're not going to listen to a bunch of kids.
Not gonna listen to our kids. So from then on, yeah, we were ostracized. They got more and more radicalized. My dad, which I don't know how common or uncommon this is in other cults, had very toxic notions about human sexuality. He had really really demeaning attitudes towards women. I have a lot of younger sisters, and we have 5 younger sisters, and 2 autistic younger brothers. Like, I have one other younger brother, and he just kind of buckled, you know, like he wasn't really a fighter. But I mean, no, I mean, that is the word for it. Like, just a complete.
What's the word?
Well, just complete oblivion, like, is what he thrust those kids into. Like, you meet them now, and like nobody's home. Like, whatever they say is like dispensed from him. Like, if you try to like challenge them, like sort of come at him from an angle that they don't have a pre-recorded response for, you know, like from all of his talking points, you just get nothing.
They're just gone.
They're just gone. So I like try to talk to him sometimes, you know, but mostly I just try to keep them away from my family that I have now, you know, like my wife and kids. They tried a couple times over the first year to be like, you're tearing apart this family, come back, you know,
So
and
you were out.
obey. We were just out. Yeah.
Out.
We were
Gone.
hard out. We were like, they're like, can't talk to your mom, can't talk to your siblings, can't talk to anybody here.
How'd it feel?
You know, it's a mix. Part of it was, you know, this is kind of gutting that mom just goes along with this, you know. But it was probably really liberating, you know, because I'm 16 years old. I need to figure out how to be a person around other people, you know, who are not in a cult. One of the side effects of being cut off from everybody else, the longer you're sequestered from people, the worse you are at engaging with people. And it seems human beings, we kind of have like a sixth sense. Most of us have. It's like a sixth sense about when someone's unhealthy. We're like, that person's weird, that person's toxic. I don't even know. There's just something about them I don't like. And we just self-select away from them. You know, it's like, who am I going to hang out with? I'm going to hang out with this popular person who seems very functional, you know, or am I going to go talk to the weird loner who kind of creeps me out? Like, they're vibing that they're sick in some way. Like, we don't even think about it. We just orient towards people who seem healthy. That's the only place that help's going to come from. From forming friendships with people in the real world and forging connections, even with just stuff that you like, that is real, outside of whatever's, you know, sort of determined and authorized by the cult.
Did they have any weird beliefs or like tenets? Was there something that like to this day it just like it's like it sticks out to you?
They papered over all the mirrors in the house.
Why?
Because he thought having a mirror would lead to an obsession with vanity. Like, it would promote this obsession with your personal appearance, which was sinful. Every single mirror in the house was papered over. In the bathrooms, you know, they had like a chest of drawers or whatever with like a mirror on top papered over, you know. But even like, we went up to like my little sister's room, and they had this dollhouse with this little tiny bathroom with a little tiny sink and a little tiny mirror, and the mirror had a little tiny piece of paper just papered over it. There could not be any mirrors. He was obsessed with like the like external appearances and stuff, like, and he was he was just neurotic about like any exposed skin. Like the kids, they would like go through all their books. They would just go with a black marker and draw in extra clothing. So they would like take all the sleeves down to here. If there was any kind of like neckline, they would take it up. They would draw in a skirt over the legs to down to like about mid calf. And even if it wasn't, even if the woman just like, if the character in the book had like a figure, they would just like dum-de-dum-de-dum, sort of draw in around. There we go, shapeless. Once they started doing like graphic design stuff, they would edit movies and like digitally edit in stuff like over like cleavage and stuff.
Serious?
With like really like uncanny valley motion matching, so it'd be like moving around and stuff.
They would legitimately do that?
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. He made my sisters and like the women wear 2 or 3 skirts layered plus pants, at least 3 layers of like tops.
Cover it up. But he has these weird ideas about sexuality, you know? So he would be like, beauty could be tempting, therefore bad. And so he'd read about these saints of the Catholic Church who would like disfigure themselves, you know, because they were super beautiful. And so their parents would want to marry them off. So they're like, oh, this is what'll be good. Claw my face, you know, like shave my head, starve myself, whatever, you know? And he was like, this is good stuff, you know? I mean, he ended up deciding that really whatever visible like hierarchy, like whatever, basically if there was any authority figures, and he was like, yeah, nope, actually turns out there's no valid structure. Good thing I have these old books from the 1500s, because now I can roll my own. He became his own pope.
Well, yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, he had visions, you know.
He had visions. What did he see in these visions?
There's this one time where he said Jesus, Mary, the devil, and Saint Michael all showed up in the same room, and they were like talking with him about the end of the world. The end of days was always just around the corner. Like,
always just around.
It was repeatedly rescheduled throughout my childhood.
Really?
Yes.
Do you remember any specific days?
Well, I mean, Y2K. Probably a bunch of people thought the end of the world was coming in Y2K.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the world was also ending in like 96. I think it was maybe going to end in 2001, you know, because, you know, obviously when 2012 happened, he was all like, oh yeah, that Mayan calendar.
So it just preached the end of days.
The end of days was always coming. So there was no need to plan ahead. So he like juggled like 6 figures of credit card debt. Just because like world was gonna end and he wouldn't have to pay it off.
What did all the money go to?
I mean, not having a job and having 9 kids, you know, was probably part of it. Like,
and he just didn't work. He just
didn't work. He was like, he had these big plans, you know. He was like, well, we'll do this, you know, we'll buy this equipment and then maybe we'll make movies with it. And then that'll, you know, change things and we'll make money. You know, and he couldn't even be bothered to like write a treatment of anything, you know. They ultimately produced religious audio CDs, you know, like radio plays. They made some coloring books. Brings in maybe $5,000 a year. He didn't really have a game plan, you know. He wasn't a very organized cult leader, you know, like he wasn't really a man on a mission.
So he continually rescheduled the apocalypse. He couldn't pay his bills. He couldn't hold down a job. He couldn't raise kids, and yet people chose to believe him.
Not many.
How many people?
I mean, he never had more than like 4 people living in the house, you know, at a given time. His kids still believe in him because they've never known anything else. I mean, my sister's going to be 30 next year and she still lives with him. The lady who moved in when she was 19, she's almost like 50 now and she still lives with him. He's not as motivated to go out and recruit anymore, you know, like his kids that he controls. They run whatever business he has. But mostly they sit around and they mess around at their workstations, and they talk about how someday, they're going to do something big, and they do graphic design and some web stuff. But they're mostly just kind of frittering their lives away. Every 4 years or so, I would like reach out to him to try to reconnect. Try to come at him from maybe another angle. As I got older and understood more about sort of my own traumas that I'd suffered and the state of my own mental health, I was like, okay, he was probably experiencing something like this. Let me go talk to him from this angle and see, But I never went in too deep. About 10 years ago, we finally helped my mom get my dad removed from the house by the cops. But at that point, all the kids pretty much had joined his cult. They all believed what he believed. Dad had started leading the younger kids in prayers that God would kill the worst parent. He told Mom if he did anything, she didn't need to get his kids taken away from him. He would kill her to prevent that from happening. But the thing about Mom is that she wasn't his kid. She was his wife. So she had a life before him, and her very existence didn't depend on him. She didn't spring forth from him like his kids did. And he just hated her for it. She could just never be a true believer the way the other ones were.
But you got her out of there.
My grandmother contacted us, and she was like, hey, your mom's really freaking out. She thinks she's in danger. Can you guys come out and meet with her? I'll have her come over to my house on some pretense. I won't even tell her you guys are coming, so she doesn't need to try to hide it from your dad. So we met her, and Mom was like, she was like, I can't go back, he'll kill me. He'll kill me, I can't go back. And she told us about, all the death threats and stuff. And so we were just like, if he's actually gonna kill you, you can't actually leave your kids with him. How about we get rid of him instead? So yeah, we got a restraining order against him, and he moved out. But I think the scariest thing is when I talk to my younger siblings, rarely, and I'm like, well, this happened, and they're like, that didn't happen. That's clearly lies. You're clearly misremembering. That's just not true.
So you were rewritten.
For them, yeah. The version of me that they have is, somebody else.
That's scary. It's just unapologetically terrifying.
Yeah, no, it was scary. And you still run into it now. They'll try to pretend that they're normal and stuff, but they just can't be because they're not around people, so they don't know what that looks like. It's weird seeing them try to sort of simulate human behavior based on Andy Griffith show reruns, basically. The few things they're allowed to watch that they watch to death.
And they're just stuck. They're trapped.
Yeah, totally stuck.
But you see how people can get trapped in these things. How they can get sucked in.
Yeah, and I think it might be easier now because the world seems so much scarier to people. I don't know if it actually is. I think it's just easier to hear about the bad stuff now. People are scared, people get confused. They're looking for someone who knows what they're talking about. People don't like having to make decisions. I've had friends who got into bad relationships where they were dominated, and if you knew them beforehand, it was like, this is a person who can't face their own lives. So they want somebody to be like, well, you're going to do this now. You're going to think this now. This is just how it is, and they can just do it. They can just offload all their decision making to somebody else and not have to worry about it.
What advice would you give to people? To people that are, not at risk of falling in a cult, but what if somebody they loved is getting close to something that you feel like could sort of sucker them in.
Like really strengthen your ties to that person, and get them involved in other stuff. A cult is not interested in you having any life, any interests, any relationships outside of the cult. So the more things you can stick to that person and stick that person to, the better their chances are of not getting sucked in. The more you can find ways to sort of reality check their own experience against what they're being told by the cult, I think the better their chances are. It's not as simple or straightforward as being like, this person's crazy, they're telling you this thing, because what a predator like that will do ahead of time is they'll be like, well, your friend's gonna tell you this. They'll say, I'm like this. Every predator does it. Like every predator primes their prey. So you gotta be smarter. You gotta come at it from the side. You can't just tell someone
You have to show them.
that they're being lied to. You gotta show them in a way where they don't catch on, because their defenses are gonna go up fast. Things to watch out for: if someone tries to take your reality away from you, that's a red flag. If they try to isolate you from things that you love, from people that you love, that's a red flag. Don't let them. They can only take that away from you if you let them, but if you let them, they will, and you might not get it back.
Are you ever worried that you might become like that?
I think I kind of went the other direction. Well, what I was going to say, in my dad's case, he started by being like, well, it's okay, God is in control. And then he was like, actually, I talk to God and God tells me everything, and now I'm in control because God, and it's all going to be just fine as long as everyone does exactly what I say and thinks exactly what I think and doesn't jostle my world at all. Myself coming out of it, I'm not especially religious. I have a difficult time because a lot of the vocabulary and artifacts of the cult were just co-opted from religion, so it's pretty toxic for me. Like I certainly understand, like, especially as a parent, it comes with a lot of challenges to know when to let go, but not to just check out. More than that, there's always sort of running in your head the domination, and so in trying to not be like that, maybe you don't give guidance that your kids are looking for. You don't drop boundaries that they need to run into to just learn. It can sometimes be hard to bond with your kids if, like, at least in my case, when what was demanded was a complete sort of subsuming of their personhood into, like, my dad's. I'm doing the best I can, but I know it's still, I got a long way to go to be able to bridge that gap.
But you want to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm working on it. Keeps me up at night, but at least it keeps me up at night. If you think someone's getting recruited at risk, or maybe in a cult and looking to get out, I mean, don't put yourself in danger. Don't get recruited, but try to reach out to them without spooking them.
Is it worth it?
I mean, I'm out, so yeah, it's worth it. Like, I'm out because I had friends who loved me and made time for me, even though I was really socially maladjusted when they first met me, from being in the cult. So
They saved you.
they totally did. If you're gonna try to help somebody, get some buddies. Bring a buddy with you.
Some big guys.
Don't try to go it alone. Because the more friends you can connect the at-risk person with, the better their chances of survival. I mean, any predator, like if you watch like National Geographic or whatever, they always try to pick one off, separate it from the herd, and then you kill it. Like, huddle up. Don't get nabbed.
So, it's over. It's the end of Evan Butler's Megaverse. Season 1, I don't know. We might do season 2, who knows. I had a lot of fun making this. I'm sorry it took so long. Thanks for sticking with us during all this. It meant a lot. I had a lot of fun, and I got to connect with a lot of people that I hadn't connected with before. I lost some people, and it took a really long time for this last video to get out there, but I think it's important. I know, it's just like me rambling on these big old diatribes about all these paradigms in life, but I hope you all learned something or felt something. That's important. You're important. Don't forget that. This is Evan Butler's Megaverse, Season 1. End.